in less than a week, I just packed my bags and flew down there. And him and a couple of guys from the team picked me up at the airport. And that's kind of how the story goes with me moving to Norway for the first time was in 2010 is because of this crazy Norwegian guy that I met at a Tony Robbins event.
Aloha, my beautiful friends. My name is Kristara Laxmiditten, coming to you from beautiful San Diego, California. And I welcome you once again to our Abundance in Action podcast, where we believe that each one of us, we have a treasure box inside. And once we start to open this treasure box and find all our talents and put them into works, we can start to manifest our life and our dreams on our terms. And today is a very, very special day because I have on the other side a very special man. I could call you also a king because I feel you have a king energy. And he is Ryan Mangano from Canada. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Crystal. This is going to be fun. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah. And I always also like to kind of mention, because so many times the people and guests of the podcast are somehow my personal connections. I also like to share like how I found you out of this big world.
Right on.
And
go ahead.
Yeah. And as we, as I was jumping into WildFit and figuring also like, oh, maybe WildFit coaching would be something for me, like to jump into their certification program. Then there is a discovery call you can set up. And I happen to be your very first discovery call for this season.
That's right. Yeah, the first one.
Yeah. And then after that, you had like 80 more.
Yeah, that's right. I had, I think, a total of 81 discovery calls. So I was pretty busy for a couple of weeks. It was like nonstop calls and for a few days. So it was kind of grueling, but you definitely set the tone. It was a great first call, and it, the rest of them, the next 80 went really well. So Thank God you're such a great person to talk to on the first one. Maybe if you were not so great, might have started off pretty negatively. Who knows?
Yeah. So I'm really glad I could help with setting the tone and influence that in a positive way. And as we started to prepare for this podcast, I was so amazed when you started to send me like a little summary of what you have done and where you have been and so much. And we'll get back to this connection to Norway because you are living right now in Norway. And I lived 7 years in Norway too. So that's really also exciting for me to dive into that. But before we go in, I also wanted to shortly give a little overview of what you have managed so far so that people can kind of connect and position themselves, like who are we having here today? So you are a Canadian. And you had no idea where to next. Your next step is after you graduated Toronto University. You are a hockey player, a gym team member who has gone through 2 knee surgeries for now. And finally, you ended up to become a key member of the sales team for Canada's largest business and leadership personal development company, who presented multi-speakers for thousands of people at the one-day event like Sir Richard Branson, President Bill Clinton, all of the speakers of The Secret, Tony Robbins, and many others. So from big corporate deals to more personal one-to-one sales calls, Ryan became the top salesperson for the Canadian Unleash the Power events for Tony Robbins for 2.5 years, while bringing in millions of dollars of sales to the company. And during the Tony Robbins Business Mastery Program in Las Vegas, which you participated, you met a new contact from Norway, who eventually invited you to start self-development live event company in Norway. So you left to Norway with 1 suitcase, a passport, and no working visa. You worked through a lot of rejection, as not only was the language the challenge, but self-development live events had a negative connotation in the Norwegian culture at that time. So Scandinavian Events company created Oslo Leadership Event, and just before he flew back to Canada, he met a Norwegian girl who now he connected with, but he had to return to Toronto to help his dad to save the bar, Linsmore Tavern. He had been running for a while, and this one is actually established in 1934. And from no background in hospitality business, Ryan figured out by trial and error what people would like and need, and turn it from the sinking ship to a local destination place in Toronto with 5 to 7 bands performing weekly as one of the most popular live music bars in the area. Later, the Norwegian girl came to live with Ryan in Toronto, but to return to Norway shortly after. And Ryan figured out a way to run the tavern remotely and moved to Norway with her in 2015. And later, Ryan started to work for the company Elevate, organizing an event for Eric Edmeades called Master the Stage Effect. And later, he continued to work with Eric's Inception Marketing live events in 2007, when Eric started to partner with Mind Valley to run Wildfit Challenge and Speaking Academy program. And later, Business Freedom and Speaker Nation, as well as Wildfit, became the main programs for Ryan to sell for Eric. By now, he has worked close to 40 live events for Eric and in 10 different countries. And during the pandemic, Eric had to change his business model more to online version, and that created an opportunity for Ryan to start to do discovery calls, which he has now done over 1,000 and can now teach also how to do that for others. He's also a father to a 2-year son, William, and the little girl on its way this summer. He values quality time with family, weight training, running, playing, and watching sports. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And yes, Thank you for such a great introduction. It sounds like you did some good research on me, and I really appreciate that. That's very nice of you to say all those things.
Yeah, and so many times I also ask people, can you send me some extra links or videos and stuff? So came out, there is not much like out there about you. So are you a secret agent?
You know what, just my role, whether it's with the bar and also with I've always kind of been the background. I like kind of being behind the scenes and putting the work behind the scenes and setting up these events. So I try not to make it about myself. I try to make it about, whatever program we're putting on and the clients that are going to be joining. Or with my bar, it was all about the bands and getting the bands out on the stage and promoting them. So
yeah. It's
I think there's one video of me doing an interview.
Yeah, so I found one. Yeah.
Oh, there's one, yeah. But that was back in 2013, I think. So it was a long time ago. Yeah.
So here we can fix it and have more about you, so people can get to know you more.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it. It's time to kind of change that a bit and put myself out there a little more and tell my story a bit. So thank you for giving me this platform. Yeah.
So how did Canadian end up in Norway? Can you go a little deeper into that story? We heard a little bit that there was a girl involved, but prior to that, you actually also, you kind of got the call. Someone was giving you an opportunity to start something from scratch and completely new. And that's quite brave. I mean, I know myself when I ended up in Norway, I was like, oh, they speak English, it will be no problem. But then as I was going from one social gathering to another, I felt like invisible person because no one really wanted to speak English. And, the way I was like really forcing myself to get more into Norwegian, I became a member of a gospel choir. I was living close to Stavanger. And then I asked everyone in that choir, please speak like Norwegian with me. And they took it seriously. So after 4 months, I actually started to like construct sentences in Norwegian. And I couldn't get into any of the classes because all the classes were fully booked and sold out for Norwegian. So I started to study with Aftenposten. I
Oh,
just
the
took
newspaper.
yeah, I took the newspaper and I had my like 3 kilo big heavy dictionary and started to like translate and
Yeah.
one day and one word at a time. And half a year later, I spoke basically fluent Norwegian. So
Wow, that's really impressive. I've been here, well, since 2015, and I'm still struggling to learn the language. That's one of my main goals actually in this year was to really improve on my Norwegian, as I have a little 2-year-old, 2.5-year-old, and he understands English, but he's speaking a lot of Norwegian, and now a lot of words are coming out, and I'm not understanding all of them. So it's like, okay, now I got to pick up the slack and get this Norwegian language mastered so I can understand what he's saying.
yeah.
Yeah. Back to your question about how I ended up in Norway. Yeah, it's an interesting story, and it goes back to 2010. I stopped working at the Power Within. That was the Canadian company. That was the biggest event company in Canada. I worked there for about 2.5 years. I just finished having my first knee surgery. And I was kind of in those crossroads, like after a job where I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was actually talking to Robbins Research Institute, based out of where you are in San Diego, Tony Robbins' company. As I worked pretty closely with them for a number of events, and I did a lot of sales for Tony Robbins events in Canada. So they knew my work. So I was in talks with them. I ended up flying down to Vegas for Tony's very first business mastery. Yeah, see, I've worked with Eric for so long. I was going to say business freedom mastery program, but it's business mastery business mastery.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I forget
business
that.
mastery.
Was it? Yeah. Yeah. It's been so long. I flew down there, and I don't know. I had this feeling that I was just gonna. I didn't know why I was going down there. I wasn't running a business or anything, but I had this feeling that I was gonna meet someone or make some sort of connection down there. So I went to the program, and it was just in one of the like random, group assignments. Tony's like, get in the group of 4 and talk about your business. And during that time, like there's probably 1,000 people at the event. I get in the random group of 4, and there's a guy from Norway in that group, and he starts talking about how he's starting his own event company in Norway. And he, where he wanted to bring in speakers, big name speakers, and his goal was to bring Tony Robbins to Norway. And so I instantly connected with them, because I was like, well, I've been doing that for the last couple of years in Canada. I've been selling and working for a company that put on all these big events with big name speakers. And so we hung out over the week. We kept talking about it, and he kept picking my brain about stuff. And finally, the week's over, the program's done. I fly back to Canada. He flies back to Norway. And when I get back to Canada, he starts, we stay in contact. He's messaging me quite a bit. And I told him I'd help him out and everything, just by giving him some tips and advice and everything. And he's like, well, why don't you come down to Norway and build this business with me? And at that time, I was talking to Tony's company, but it wasn't set in stone. But this guy from Norway, he was so, I don't know, there's something about him, but he's a really good salesman himself, but he was just selling this idea of coming to Norway. He's, it's a very rich country. It's beautiful. There's a lot of oil money. The standard of living is really high. There's no event company here. It's an untapped market. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this is exciting. Let's start something new. So literally, like, in less than a week, I just packed my bags and flew down there. And him and a couple of guys from the team picked me up at the airport. And that's kind of how the story goes with me moving to Norway for the first time was in 2010. Is because of this crazy Norwegian guy that I met at a Tony Robbins event.
So that's like a really fascinating story. Thank you for sharing this. And One other thing which I wanted to mention to you about my learning Norwegian, my best first teachers were actually twins. They were two girls I was actually au pairing for, and they were 4 years old. And they actually shared all their, like, little children's books with me.
Oh, yeah.
And I started to, like, word by word, like kind of testing it and so on. And I remember we were walking outside one day, and one of them wanted to go straight and one of them wanted to go to the right. And I had like zero Norwegian in the beginning. So I had to like figure out how to construct a sentence and say that we needed to go to the left.
Oh.
And I couldn't figure it out, even though I had my thick dictionary at the time with me. And so we went first a little bit straight and then a little bit right, and then we turned and went my way. So it was like kind of, okay, everyone gets their direction and then we go. And what's really good with children is that they have no judgments. They are really like supportive, even when you start to like pronounce the words and so on. It's really cool. So you already have your teacher there, so you should just like listen to him really carefully.
Yeah, that's some good advice. And I do read a lot of little children Norwegian books to him, so I think that helps too.
Yeah,
that's great advice. You're right about that. Yeah.
Yeah, great practice. And I'm so fascinated by your spirit of getting this call and challenge and just jumping on board. And basically he was the only person you knew in Norway, but you just trusted the call, and you had that lucrative opportunity here in San Diego, and you just felt like, okay, my spirit is calling, Norway is calling, let's go.
Yeah.
And then you jumped in.
Yeah,
trusting that.
It was, I don't know what it was. He was a good salesman on the building this business with them, and I don't know, I was single and I was young, and it just seemed like such a fun adventure, and so I did it, and it was scary, but it was really cool that I look back now and it's like, wow, I can't believe I did that. But it was just the timing. I could have done that. I didn't have anything going on in Canada at that point, and I was like, okay, let's do this. So,
Yeah.
and I guess I was very optimistic. He's a very optimistic guy, so he really painted this picture of how we were going to be able to, bring Tony Robbins to Norway and do all these big things and make lots of money, and that really kind of excited me, the fact that it was in an untapped market. And I had a lot of success in Canada with these events. So I was thinking to myself that we can replicate that in Norway.
Mm-hmm. And then the reality hit. What happened? Did it go as you planned, or life and God had other plans?
Yeah, no, it didn't go as what what I thought it would. We got there, and yes, Norway had an untapped market. There was no event company, but there was also this negative, connotation about personal development and leadership events. In Norway at the time, people would call it hallelujah events. And the other problem was the program that we were putting on. We were bringing in a number of no-name speakers that no one knew in Norway, where I was used to selling only the biggest names like Bill Clinton and Tony Robbins and all these, superstars, where I literally I could call anyone and say, hey, we're bringing Bill Clinton, to Toronto on this date, and people buy tickets. And I thought, okay, I could do the same thing in Norway and it would work. But once I started trying to reach out to people and calling them and telling them about the event that we were putting on, and the speakers that we're bringing in that no one knew who they were. There are no name speakers anywhere, but especially in Norway. It kind of, put it this way, I've never been rejected so much in my life. And the other thing too was I only spoke English, and Norway in 2010, I live here now and most people speak English and they don't mind speaking English, but back then it seemed a little different. People were not as friendly when you were cold calling them in English. And I remember butchering all the Norwegian names. So here I am cold calling someone, and I guess a popular name in Norway is Tona, right? Tona, spelled
Tone.
Tone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And me as
Tone.
a Canadian, I would be calling up, "Hi, is Tone there?" I completely
Wow.
butcher their names with,
Yeah.
because I didn't understand that the E on the end was like, like an right? So it was tough. It was really tough. I got rejected so many times. Like I've never been rejected so many times in my life. I don't think it's possible to get rejected as much as me.
So how did you deal with that rejection? I mean, I know from doing sales stuff myself also, it's a really good way to grow your sales muscle. But is there something you did specifically to move through it and, kind of like get to the next stage? What did you do?
Yeah, it was tough because we were getting some sales training and so yeah, I had to grow as a salesperson. It wasn't like what I thought sales was, which was before it was just me calling up people and saying we're bringing Bill Clinton, buy tickets, and people would buy. I had to, I had to do a lot of things. I had to, put myself out there, go to meetings, set up meetings. I had to do a lot of different things to put myself out there. I think in the end, what we realized, and we managed to put on the event and sell tickets. So it's not like I didn't sell any tickets at all. We put on an event with a few hundred people, and I sold, a good number of those tickets. But I guess one of the things was just being really persistent and really resilient, to make sure, I kept trying. I never gave up for those 6 months. I had to grow as a salesperson. And the other thing was I also realized that you can't just sometimes, if you have the wrong program or the wrong product, you're selling something that's just doesn't make sense or doesn't work. Sometimes you just have to chalk it up to not you as a salesperson, but, the program that you're selling. And so you have to, that's where the business has to kind of figure out, okay, we're doing something wrong here with the program and what we're offering.
Very crucial to figure out, are we offering what people need right now?
Right.
And do we have the package what they need right now? So you had another really amazing experience with that when you went back to Canada to help your dad with a bar there. And I liked how maybe you can actually even go into more details here, how you basically jumped in, had no idea how to bring it out. And you were trying so many things. And what was that learning experience like? Can you mention some of the things you did and what was the final result? How did you find the solution? Because I think so many entrepreneurs, once we start, we just have this idea, oh, I'm going to do this or that, and then comes out like, wow, there is no market or no one is actually really resonating. And then just something random happens and kaboom, that's your solution.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I took over the bar, I didn't have any experience in the hospitality or the bar or the restaurant, but I loved going to bars and restaurants. So it was something that I was really excited to do. And when I came in there, the place has been struggling for years, many years. It was kind of an old timer dive bar. It hasn't been renovated. We had a clientele that was aging and dying. So it was really, really struggling. And I started working there, just kind of getting to know and understand the business a little bit and understanding the clientele and the neighborhood. And yeah, it was tough to start, but I was like, okay, we can't just keep doing what we're doing because it's not working. We're getting the same people in and there's not many of them and they're aging and we need to do something to get people in. So we started, okay, let's try this. So we invested in some new TVs. Let's make it a sports bar. So we brought in some brand new TVs. and we still didn't get anyone out. People didn't come to watch sports. I started running dart leagues and pool leagues, billiard leagues, and it was just the same people, the same regulars playing in them. Ran some golf tournaments. I'd get the odd friend out, personal friend out, but I realized, okay, my friends are kind of getting in that age where they're starting to start families and stuff. They can't be going out every night and drinking and supporting my bar. I can't do that to them, and I can't expect them to come. So that didn't work. I tried karaoke. Like sometimes regulars or customers would come in and be like, okay, well, if you did this, I'd come out and bring my friends. And I'm like, okay. So I try that, and it didn't work. So karaoke was one of the things I tried. We tried some themed parties, which were good once in a while, but you can't do them consistently. I brought DJs in. The DJ when we brought DJs in, sometimes it didn't bring the best crowd in. And then we even tried something called Sexy Bingo. You know what that is?
No. Can you tell me?
So it's bingo, where instead of winning money, you win sex toys.
Oh, wow. That's very original.
Yeah. So we tried that out. We did that a few times. It was fun, but it didn't really do too well. And then one day, this guy came in and he said, "Hey, I would like to bring my band in to play at your place. And if my band plays, I could bring all my friends out." And he was probably in his 30s. I was like, okay, why not? Like, I was at that point where I was willing to try anything. I just wanted to get people in. I get excited when new customers, people that I didn't recognize, would come to the bar, because it was like a dive bar where it would just be people. Like, a lot of people would walk by the place and cross the street because they were scared of it. That's what it was. Like, only people that knew the place would come in. So I was like, okay, let's try it out. So this band came in, and they played, and they're awful, god awful, but they brought all their friends out, and all their friends were, younger people in their 30s, and like a mix between male and females, which we didn't get many females into this dive bar before. So it was nice to get, people of the opposite sex in, and they're dancing and they're drinking, they're having a good time. And it was a good number of people out, and the sales were great. So I was like, wow, that worked. Okay. So then from there, I ended up booking another band, and it was another good night. And so I started booking bands, once in a while. It started off maybe once a month, and then eventually it was once, every 2 weeks, and then once a week, and then every weekend. And then finally, I think I got up to 4 times a week. And then I was like, okay, it's time to go all in. And from there, created a website, started selling tickets from the website. So I kind of utilized my skills of selling tickets for personal development events, and created that with the website and selling tickets to concerts, to shows. And so it took a couple of years, but after about 3 or 4 years, we were doing shows pretty consistently, about 5 to 7 times a week. And yeah, so by doing that, like, now not only like are we getting the bands and their client and their fans coming out, but now it became more of a destination place in Toronto. People knew the Linsmore Tavern as a live music venue, a place to see a good band. And as I got more experienced and got to know more of the bands, I was getting better acts in. And then, then I started becoming kind of snobby with the bands that I was booking. Like, now I'm not booking these, like that first band that I booked, I would never book them again on a Friday or Saturday night, because now I have this clientele that are coming in every Friday and Saturday expecting to see the best bands out there, and they're paying money to see these bands. So now I had to, really, step it up and make sure that the entertainment was top notch. And so, I created themed nights. So every Sunday I have something called Blues Sundays, where we would bring in, some of the best blues musicians in Canada to play. Tuesday night, we'd have an indie night where we bring in 3 different indie bands to play. Um, and then Friday and Saturday we do tribute nights where we bring in these world-class tribute bands. So it took a little bit of time, but it took off, and it was really there was a bit of a slow progression, but I'm glad that we did it, and we've been going pretty strong. Running live music as a live music venue in Toronto for quite a few years now.
Yeah, what's really fascinating with this story and connected to the podcast team also, like abundance in action, and as I was starting with the talents and treasures inside. So basically in that process of being an entrepreneur, trying to figure out things, you were also very curious, exploring, discovering these different things. And this is one thing I think so many people, when they start to dive into entrepreneurship, they are maybe scared, or they are expecting that things will kind of work out right the first trial. And then when it doesn't, they just kind of give up too early. So for you, it took quite many rounds till you figured out oh, this is working. And then you started to build on that. So is there something you would say to encourage entrepreneurs who are starting up and are really stuck in the beginning, how to make this thing work, how to keep it going? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I think my biggest suggestion would be learn from your mistakes. So I learned, I tried a lot of different things, and I realized, okay, this isn't working. So let's try something new. And I was willing to try anything to make this a success. And it took probably 10 to 12 things. I didn't even list all the stuff that I tried before I kind of found my niche. So I would say learn from your mistakes. If something's not working, make adjustments. And it doesn't mean give up on it, on that specific thing, but don't do the same thing twice if it doesn't work. So make the proper adjustments. And if it's not going to work completely, then I would say, shift towards something else.
Yeah, it's such a crucial tip. And we had another call. I was asking your ideas about one of the bigger events I'm putting together. And you said it so well, even if it doesn't work out perfect this time, you've learned, what to do different next time. And it just took so much pressure off myself. I realized how, as an entrepreneur, of course, I want to do the best. I want to offer the best. And, life just has sometimes its own kind of ways to do things. So that's a really good tip. So another thing which I wanted to ask, so as you were working so closely with Tony Robbins, did you have some personal encounters with him? How did you experience him as a person?
Well, I didn't work as closely with him. So Tony had his business in San Diego. Whenever Tony would do events in Canada, it was through my company. So I did meet him a couple of times, and he was he's big. Number one, he's really big. But yeah, it's just, he's larger than life, really. That's what he was. And one of my friends, Emily, who's just an amazing inspiration. She's from Edmonton. She's got cerebral palsy, and Tony Robbins is her hero. And I managed to get her, her goal was to meet Tony, and I managed to bring her backstage to meet Tony. And Tony was really, really nice to her and really good to her. And they ended up connecting a few other times too. Every time Tony sees her, he points her out and gives her a hug, and it's really cool. So yeah, Tony's a good guy. Yeah.
And then a question also, I wonder that sometimes do you think that salesman is just someone who is born as a salesman with the talents? It's just kind of, you have to just fine tune it, or is it someone you can become? What do you think?
Well, in my case, personally, I could tell you my story. I definitely wasn't born as a salesman. When I first started, my first job right out of university was with this company called The Power Within. I had no experience with sales. I was really cocky coming in. I did the job interview. I didn't even know what the business was about. And somehow they hired me. And really early on. So the first thing they had me do was watch like their events and stuff. So they put me in a room. I watched a bunch of events of theirs, and I was like, wow, there's some really cool speakers. So I was getting into this. And then they partnered me up with like one of their senior salesperson. His name was Matthew. So I would sit there with Matthew and I'd listen in on his phone calls. And so I'd sit there and listen in on his phone calls. They had me do it for a couple of weeks. And I remember the first day I sat in with Matthew, he just made it look so easy. It was so effortless for him. And it was just sale after sale after sale. And at the end of the day, I think he sold about $10,000. And I asked him, hey, Matthew, what'd you make today? It looked like he did pretty good. And he was so nonchalantly, 10% of 10,000, I made $1,000 today. And I was like, $1,000. I was like 24 right out of university. And I was like, $1,000. Okay. I can't wait to do this. So I was really, really cocky. I thought I could do this no problem. And then after 2 weeks of sitting there and watching Matthew, finally the boss, like we had like this instant messenger thing on Matthew's computer, and the boss wrote in, okay, let Ryan take this next inbound call. So the call comes in, and this is me. Thank you for calling the Power Within. Ryan speaking. How can I help you? And then the person says, oh, I'd like more information about the event with Tony Robbins in Toronto. And then this is me. I completely froze. I couldn't say anything. And like after about 10 seconds of me like completely freezing, Matthew had to jump in and then save the call and of course close the sale. And then I remember my boss writing in on the instant messenger saying, okay, he's not ready. Take him off the phones. And I was like, oh, I was completely dejected. I was like, oh my God. All of a sudden I was so cocky, and then it just kind of brought me down to earth. And so then for the next 2 months, my boss would not let me go on the call on the phones at all. I had to sit there and watch Matthew and listen to him for 2 months straight. And like each day I was thinking, okay, I can't do this. This isn't meant for me. Like my confidence was so low, and I just, I kept thinking, I can't do this. I should quit. This isn't for me. And then after 2 months, like I was getting paid. He was paying me a salary. So I pretty much did 2 weeks of kind of training, and then so almost 3 months I was getting paid to literally do nothing. And I was thinking to myself, like, he's going to fire me. I'm not bringing anything to the table. He hired 2 other salespeople around the same time that they hired me, and they got it. They were already on the phones making sales. I'm just sitting there and listening and doing nothing. And then finally my boss was like, one day after the 2 months was like, okay, Ryan, tomorrow you're going to sit at your own desk and you're going to have to do calls. So I went home that night and I was thinking, okay, it's make it or break it. I better, I better like get it together. Also, I'm going to get fired. So then that first call happens the next day. And I remember I had to do an outbound call, like a courtesy call, kind of telling like a previous client that we're coming back to their city and we're bringing in a number of speakers. So I make the call. I follow the script. We had a script at the time on the piece of paper. And the script kind of, like, I followed it perfectly. And the way the script worked was, okay, here, I'll do an example of it. Hi, it's Ryan calling from the Power Within. I just wanted to give you a quick courtesy call to let you know that the Power Within, we're returning to Vancouver on whatever date it is. And we're bringing with us Tony Robbins. You attended our previous event back in 2006. Can you tell me who was your favorite speaker at that event? So I followed that script. And then what happens when I ask them who their favorite speaker is, then it gets them kind of in that mode of remembering that event. And then they answer the question. It gets them talking. So that's what that script did. And so when I did that perfectly. And then the person answered, and we just had a full-on conversation for like an hour. And I was like talking to the person, like we're best friends, and getting to know their life and everything, and getting to, like going deep with the person for about an hour. And then finally the call ended, and I felt good about myself. As each minute went on, I felt more confidence in myself with the call, because it was just like a conversation with a friend. And finally, at the end of the call, I looked up, and my boss, who was a bit of a hard ass, actually, he just looked over at me and gave me the thumbs up and said, "Way to go, Mangano." And then I look over at Matthew, and he goes, "Good job, Mangano. Did you close the sale?" And I'm like, "Oh no, I knew I forgot something." So I didn't even try to close the sale on the person, but it didn't matter. That phone call, like, that was the game changer for me, because it allowed me to be comfortable with people on the call, and it made me realize, okay, this isn't scary. And from there, I've managed to have like a 14-year career in sales, because I was able to just get through that call and treat it like a conversation with a friend. So to answer your question, you're definitely, I don't believe that you're born as a salespeople. Yes, some people might be, I guess, better at it, like early on. You can definitely learn how to be a good one.
What would you say some key elements are when you start to talk to strangers like that? Is there something which would make you feel more at ease? What would you suggest? Like, you discovered, like, okay, I can just have this conversation. It makes me feel comfortable. Were there other keys which you discovered, like, which made it a success for you and the person on the other side?
I think just being a good listener. I think the key really is just to get the other person talking really early on. If you call someone and you just blab on, or if you're doing a discovery call and you're just blabbing on, you don't build that rapport. You don't learn about the person. So I really think the key is not to talk too much early on in the conversation. I think just kind of asking and listening and learning about the person is the best way to go about building that rapport with the person on the other line.
Yeah, I so agree. So many times, people, especially coaching work with people, coaches also forget that it's not their show. It's actually the client who is the star in a way. And if you're there and let them guide you, then you can actually help them even more, because they will unfold and they will show like where things are going and how things are. So really cool. So now, one other thing, what happened to you was also, you were put onto the spot, as I understand, like a little kind of, maybe a little forceful, when your girlfriend at the time was saying like, hey, like, I don't want this 40-hour crazy work. Like, I want to have a life. And then she moved back to Norway. And then you're like, okay, I probably need to make some changes. And so you basically started to do your, and also, lead and run your business remotely. And that's one of the parts which Eric is also talking a lot, the business freedom part. So can you tell a little bit how that went and how did you manage? Because now you have done it for quite a while remotely, right?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me was moving back to Norway in 2015. I was the exact opposite of I had the exact opposite of business freedom. I was literally doing everything at that bar. I was bartending, I was busboy, I was cleaner, I was landlord, I was doorman, I was running the social media, promoting, booking, everything. So people talk about 40-hour work week. I was doing 40-hour weekends. So just on the weekends. And then I would put in, a lot of hours during the week. I was constantly on call, and it was wrong. It was not the right lifestyle to live. And so, yeah, she wanted to move back to Norway. And it wasn't like she just got up and packed her bags and moved back to something we discussed, right? So we planned it out and took, we planned it about 6 to 8 months before we moved back. But we just had to set up some systems at the bar where we had to hire some new people. And that's what we did. And then when I moved to Norway, I continued with booking all the bands, the social media, because all that stuff I could just do from my computer. I already knew so many people and so many different bands and musicians, and it became easy. So there's certain bands I'm like, okay, I know I can book this band 6 times a year. And then there's some bands once or twice a year. And bands started coming to, like, because we were, a destination place and we had a good following. Bands were coming to me, and I didn't have to see them. I can see, you can see the videos of the bands, on YouTube or on their websites, to know if they're good. And so, yeah, I've been able to, since 2015, I've been able to do all the bookings. I haven't stepped foot in the bar, and yeah, it's been good, and it's worked out. I actually think it's worked better, me being away, because when I was hands-on, I couldn't focus as much on the promotion, the social media, the bookings. I was doing all the other stuff at the bar, and so yeah, it's interesting, because before I started working with Eric in Business Freedom, I was the exact opposite of Business Freedom. So when I do have, when I did talk to people about Business Freedom and doing discovery calls, I do sometimes tell the story. Like, I know what it's like not to have business freedom, and it's bad. Like, you have no life at all, and it ends up affecting all the other areas of your life too. Yeah. So I couldn't imagine doing what I was doing with a family, with kids. It was good. It was good that we got up and left.
I just did another podcast with one really successful real estate investor. And he said also that one of the first things he learned was that as a landlord, first of all, it was good not to live on the property if possible. And then secondly, that he had to have someone else manage, getting all the rents like sorted out and so on. And definitely not kind of, rent your places to friends, or, that kind of messed things up. So these are really good points which you say. And also, as a business owner myself, I think it's also kind of like a wrong picture people sell or think about, having a business. It's like, oh, then I have my own hours and I'll just like work like 4 hours a day, or maybe only like 4 days. And then the reality is, once they jump in with everything they have, it's actually, as you said, it can be more than 8 hours per day. And then not only like 5 days per week, but you may stretch it like over time, many days. So that's a really good point. So now, as you put that business freedom into works, and you started to also work more with Eric Edmeades, how has that experience been? You're very closely like working with him now. And I even approached you and I said, like, I totally understand if you're like exclusively working with kind of like exclusive marriage with Eric, How has that been, that cooperation and working with him?
It's honestly like, I have the best job in the world. I love doing what I do. Eric is a great guy to work for. Technically I'm not like, I could work for other people, but it's hard going, like, to me, I think Eric's the best speaker in the world. So it's hard for like going from the best speaker in the world to, anyone else. But yeah, no, he's a great guy. I've got to know him. The first event that I worked with when I moved back in 2015 was with when I moved back and I reconnected with my old business partner in Norway. He was putting on events in Scandinavia, and the first event I worked was one of Eric's events called Master the Stage Effect, and I never heard of Eric before. And then I saw him speak, and I was blown away. I thought he was the best speaker I've seen since Tony Robbins. Now, that was 2015. Now that I've worked with him for the last 6 years, I think he's better than Tony. But when I saw him speak, I was like, I want to work with this guy. There's something special about him. And he was a really good guy, really cool guy when I met him too. So it's been really cool to work with him, and kind of, I've been part of something that's been growing consistently for 6 years. And it's really been a lot of fun. It's amazing. And one of the best parts about it is that like I get to, I sell his programs, I sell his events, and I get to sleep really good at night because I know what Eric does is going to help people, and he puts his heart and soul into these programs and these events. And so I sleep really good at night when when I'm selling events for $10,000 to people. And because Eric, I know Eric, Eric's got this. He's so good at what he does, and he really does care. And so our values really align. And it's really it's great to work for someone so good and so good at what he does, and also someone that just cares, right? It's about getting results for his clients, where, and unfortunately in the speaking industry, not every speaker is like that. So,
and it's also because you have several programs, you are helping and supporting him with sales and stuff, so it's also not just boring, because it's like different kind of type of people which are attracted to different things. So I was so lucky to also do the One Talk workshop. So we talked just prior to that, and it was also like amazing people, and the way he does everything is really very like enthusiastic and inspiring in so many ways. And so now, when you think of about the future, like, have you been thinking also where you see your future going with your sales work? What is it like? You have your own plans, own courses, classes you are kind of thinking of putting together? Because obviously you have so much knowledge about selling. I would like to come to a class with you.
I've thought about it. Yeah, and I really don't mind being in the kind of part of the team in the background and everything. I don't mind. I think at some point I will go that route where I will potentially maybe be the speaker or put out some programs and coaching. One of the things I think I can really help people with is discovery calls. I've done over 1,000 of them in the last few years, and I feel like I just through trial and error, not trial and error, but I think I've really mastered it. I've got a lot of experience with it, and I think I can really give people good tips on how to be successful with it. But yeah, sales in general, I think I got a lot of experience with it, and I think at some point, maybe not in the not too distant future, I will be releasing some content and potentially some courses. So
yeah,
we'll keep you we'll keep you informed on that.
yeah. And also in alignment with that, we also talked that maybe our podcast listeners and viewers may get a little taster of it.
Yeah. I think I could come up with something for your listeners. Just a little something. I think one of the important things with the discovery call is just kind of getting the opening. The opening of the call can really set the standard for the experience for your client and on the discovery call. So I think I'm going to come up with something for your listeners on how they can get through that opening bit. And it's not very hard to do. It's just something that I do that actually it's interesting because I was doing discovery calls a few years back and I was having good success with it. But then sometimes there was the odd call that I didn't do very well with it. And I remember my fiance, she was listening in, and it was one of the calls that I did very poorly on. And I was like, that one did not go good. And I'm like, what did I do wrong? And she's like, okay, well, when you do things right, you get, you establish yourself, and then you get the client talking right away. And on that call, you just started blabbing off. So I just kept talking, right? So what happened was the client asked me a question and I just started talking. And the mistake that I made was I should have, looking back, and what she pointed out was that I should have kind of established myself saying, okay, I'm Ryan, and yes, I'll get to your questions. But before You ask me any questions. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? So if I just made that adjustment, then the call would have went a lot better. And so when she pointed that out to me, I completely changed every single call that I do, discovery call that I do. And that was the one key thing that I was missing. So one of the things that I will come up with for your listeners is that starting point. I will give you guys the trick to getting people to build that rapport right away with your client on the discovery call.
Yeah, it's kind of like similar to what Eric is saying about, your speech, it's the hardest to take off. And then once you are in the air, your momentum is there. And then it's also the landing thing, which you have to work. So it's kind of similar to discovery call. Like, you have to really know what you're doing.
Yeah, the start is crucial. I think that's the most important thing. If you start off properly, then the rest of it will come. And the way that I do my calls, it builds instant rapport right away. So yeah. It works.
Very simple.
Yep.
Yeah. So is there something else you would like to say as a final thought or thoughts for our listeners and viewers? So with this podcast, our aim is to inspire and motivate them to really, dive deeper into their talents or maybe also hidden skills they don't even know. And we believe, and we have experienced ourselves and many of the guests we have had here, that once you really put them to work, it starts to actually serve you and also bring lots of abundance, not only financially, but also, as relationships or possibilities or many other ways.
Yeah, I think one of the things I just want to say is sometimes you just got to put yourself out there and take a chance. I look back at my life and I look at little decisions that I've made. So one of the decisions that I made that really changed the path of my life was I went to that Tony Robbins event in Vegas. If I didn't do that, then I would have never met that Norwegian promoter, and I would have never moved to Norway, and then I would have never met my fiance, and then it would have never led me back to run, so little decisions like that, so if you put yourself out there and sometimes take chances, it can really change that direction and path in your path in life. So that would be my one suggestion is, if you're kind of stuck, you don't know what to do, I would just put yourself out there, do something, go to some sort of event, take a vacation somewhere, do some networking, do something. You never know what's going to come from it. And sometimes nothing comes from it, but other times it could be a life-changing opportunity or moment for you.
Yeah, I so like it. And without that choice, you wouldn't be also maybe dad. And also now you will have another child coming in. So yeah, It's like really amazing treasures waiting for us once we take the chance. So
yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ryan. It has been such a blast. I always enjoy talking to you. I'm so glad I could be part of this little mini project to show the world who you are and how amazing you are. So I'm so glad. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Crystal. I really enjoyed this, and I think what you're doing is great with this podcast. You're a very good viewer. I love all the questions that you asked me, and your research in it. It's really cool. So thank you again for this opportunity and this platform.
Thank you. And to all of our listeners and viewers, please, as always, like, share, subscribe. And if you have some more questions or suggestions, always take contact with us. Our podcast is up on Spotify, Google Play, YouTube, Podbean, and many other platforms. And we also have Facebook page, Abundance in Action. So check us out. And as always, the good stuff is best when you share it. So thank you so much. All the best and see you all soon.
Bye.